Thank you for this incredible and extraordinary opportunity to join you all today. I'm always humbled by the opportunity to share our story with any group. I grew up in Rancho Cucamonga, California, where we had a ticker tape parade the day we got a Walmart, a claim jumper, and a price club. So it's an honor to be able to share our story. With the time I have today, I'm going to share with you three things. The first is my personal journey. The second is what my team and I do. And the third is what we've learned about how any of us can manage through adversity in our personal and our professional lives. So first, a little bit about me. I grew up in the company of entrepreneurs. My parents are the only two people to leave their families in Taiwan, come to the United States. They were in Los Angeles. My mom worked on a hamburger truck and my dad worked on a loading dock. And they ended up owning multiple businesses, restaurants. I worked in the Mongolian barbecue, all you can eat, $6.95 at lunch, $12.95 at dinner. Scrap metal business, convenience stores, and just really taught me what it meant to be an entrepreneur. When I graduated from school, I ended up working for the family business for a year, and it was this incredible opportunity to help my parents retire and see their success. From there, I went to McKinsey and Company, where I spent 11 years. And I know that's what you're thinking. Thank goodness for these Asian genetics, because 11 years is a long time to be a consultant. And at McKinsey and Company, I was really able to get two gifts. The first is the power of client service, that it is my role in life to help others succeed. And secondly, the idea of apprenticeship and mentorship, because your toughest coach is often your best one, the one that encourages you and takes the time to give you the feedback to succeed. There are very few places in your 20s and 30s where you have the opportunity to spend time with the world's leading executives and thinkers and achieve incredible things in compressed timeframes. So that's the second part of my journey. And then the third is, after 12 years of working, I hit the pause button. I took a year off. I went around the world. And on the last 2 weeks of my holiday, I went to go visit my parents in Taiwan. And it was this incredible moment because if you know my mom, and I'll tell you a little bit about her, she is the tiger mom, right? She believes that book was written just about her. We were at dinner one night and she said, "Lisa, home is nice, but you cannot live here. You go back McKinsey, you find a new job." And I had just finished reading Walter Isaacson's biography of Steve Jobs. And if some of you may remember, Steve Jobs gave this beautiful commencement speech about connecting the dots of your life. And I had been on a beach in Greece, and I had pulled out a napkin and I had drawn out the dots of my life. And I grabbed this napkin and I bring it over to my mom, and she said, "Napkin is not job. How much money you save?" And I told her how much money I'd saved. And this is where I say, if there were a global pack of tiger moms and they had an annual parade, my mom would lead the charge and wave a flag. The next morning, with the 12-hour time difference between New York and Taiwan, I had 10 emails in my inbox. "Your mom says you're starting a company. What's the name of the company? We need legal paperwork." That was from a lawyer. The accountant, "Here's your tax ID paperwork. We need to get you an EIN number. Your mom emailed me last night saying we needed to get you started." And there were all these emails basically saying that I was starting a company, and my mom had started this email thread. And I walked into the breakfast room and I said, "Mom, what did you do last night?" And she said, "Oh, you not have guts. I have guts. I go on the internet. I start a company last night." And so that was October 12th, 2012. And I love to share a bit of my personal journey before we talk about how to manage through adversity, because one of the key components is that at every stage of my journey, there have been people, whether it's my family, world's leading executives and thinkers, that have pushed me to pursue my passion and told me that I had the guts to live my purpose. And that's really, we're going to come back to this idea of who comes along for the ride when times are tough. So what was on that napkin? Everyone always goes, what was on the napkin? What convinced your mom that you should go start a company? When I was 22 years old and I was a first-year analyst at McKinsey, I was sitting with my development group leader, and she gave me my first annual review. And the opening line was this: Lisa comes across as young and overly enthusiastic at times. She should seek to have more gravitas. By the way, that's a photo of what I look like at 22 years old. I really think that companies should tell you that whatever your ID badge is, that photo they take of you on your first day of work, that stays with you for the rest of your career. 12 years later, that was still the photo on the internal directory. But this was the opening line, and I didn't even know what the word gravitas meant. I actually had to go look it up in a dictionary. And when I did, it said dignity, importance, and depth of substance. By the way, this review was given to me by the first woman head of any McKinsey office. She's this incredible powerhouse at the firm when she was there. And I was so embarrassed. I didn't know what to do. I asked her, how do I get gravitas? And she said, oh, buy a new dress, wear big jewelry, and great shoes. But I was 22 years old, size 20, 18, 20, and making $43,000 a year. And my boss has just told me to go and buy new clothes. And when I asked her why, she said, I can teach you how to be great at this job. I can't teach you how to like yourself. When I get up in the morning, I'm the first person I have to look at in the mirror. And when I look at myself in the mirror, I like to pay myself a compliment. I like to basically say something positive. And she said, when I put on a great dress, it reminds me of all the wonderful things I'm good at. And she said, Dumbo had a flying feather. He never really needed that feather, but he needed it as a reminder that he could fly. And so I love this idea of we can have reminders in our life of betting on ourselves, feeling confident, having gravitas. So I started my company Gravitas with the mission to catalyze confidence. Our first product, which we patented, was building shapewear into the little black dress. And what that would do is any woman could get a confidence hug and feel like she was her best self. This is one of the images from our first photo shoot, which was the idea of, you can come in looking beautiful at any size and any age and in any profession, and we will just give you that additional confidence boost. We launched in September of 2013, and 6 weeks later, we got a notification that Oprah magazine had given us a 2-page feature in their favorite things issue. Now, when I tell people about the Oprah effect, they're like, that's incredible. But this actually photo is from the day before we found out. We were operating the company out of my 1-bedroom apartment in New York City. Susanna, our old marketing director, didn't even have a seat at the table. She's working on the couch. And this was, I call it the calm before the storm, because when you're in Oprah magazine, they don't tell you until a few weeks before the issue hits the newsstands. Well, you can only imagine what happened. In less than a day, we sold out of all the inventory, and it was just unreal, this crazy moment in the history of our company. Actually, we were only 6 years old, or 6 weeks old, so not even a history. It was this unbelievable moment that we had right when we started. But about 2 months later, we started to get these messages, these emails and phone calls. And by the way, I am not the type of person that opens up my laptop and says, Dear Nike or Dear Apple, I love you. So this was kind of a shocking moment for us to get hundreds of letters. And we'd like to show you one of the letters now.
Okay, Sam, which shoes?
The blue ones. You look really good, Mom.
So that's Michelle from Alexandria, Virginia, and she wrote us a letter saying that she was going through a divorce and that she needed to go to her son's graduation, and she needed a dress to go to graduation and to interview for a new job. I ended up going down to DC and dressing Michelle and her sister and her best friend, and it was one of those moments where we were really honored to be a part of her life in that moment. In fact, I get life updates from Michelle. We are friends on Facebook and LinkedIn. And so every few months, I get a message from her about how things are going. But she wasn't alone. We got messages from a flight attendant who'd lost her job and with her last paycheck, got a new job and went to her mom's funeral. A judge in LA Superior Court, she was a lawyer, she sold her home, and with her public school teacher husband and her 2 young sons, campaigned to be the youngest woman judge in LA Superior Court and won with 63% of the vote. She sent us a video of her wearing our dress and her sons putting on her judge's robes. These unbelievable stories of how we had been there for women at these critical moments in their life, and that the word gravitas being sewn into their dress meant something to them. And what I realized is we didn't have a fashion company, that we had a confidence company, that through our innovations, we were giving people the gift of self-confidence. Now, let me pause here and say I've spent the last few years thinking about what that really means. And what I've come to realize is that it's a choice, that we can choose to be self-confident. As children, we are born fully self-confident. If any of you have children or have been around children, there's this unbelievable sense of self. I have a 6-year-old stepson who thinks he's the best at everything, and he is, right? He's the best skier, he's the best soccer player. There's nothing he can't do. And at some point in our adolescence, we are taught these very ugly words like pretty, ugly, smart, stupid, right? These very judgmental, self-conscious words. And they enter our vocabulary for the first time and kick off a lifelong balancing act of being self-conscious versus self-confident. Now, there are times when it's okay to be self-conscious, like my 22-year-old self, who was given a piece of feedback and needed to learn how to have gravitas. But I would say 80% of the time, we can choose to be self-confident. And there are things like a dress, which is what we make, that are a reminder to make that choice on a regular basis. Now, I spend a lot of time in dressing rooms, and for the women in the audience, I hope this resonates with you. And for the men in the audience, I'm about to give you a window into the psyche of women as they go into a dressing room. Every woman, doesn't matter who they are and what stage of life, they come to get dressed with me, and they will start with everything they hate about themselves. I don't like my arms. I haven't lost the baby weight. I've never liked this. I'm going to lose 10 pounds. They start with all these insecurities. And I always say, we have just set ourselves up to fail, which is very similar to an analogy for our lives, right? So you come into a dressing room already presuming that it's not going to work. And what I say is, let me pause you. I'm a dress whisperer. My job is to find something that fits you versus you fitting into something. And we spend 20 minutes talking about the things she's great at, the things she wants to accomplish in life, where these clothes are taking her, even before we've actually looked at any clothes. And once I send her into the dressing room, she comes out, she usually goes, "This is a skinny mirror. I think you're tricking me. There's no way I look like this. I look amazing." I go, "No, we're just highlighting and shining a light on the things that make you truly wonderful and truly beautiful." And so that is this really powerful idea of we can change the psychology of how we take on the day. Just like when you enter a dressing room, you can change the mindset you have around setting yourself up to fail. Because we as a company recognize the powerful role that fashion has to play in our lives. But there's a step before that of letting go of insecurities that haunt us, and really embracing what makes us truly distinctive, what we're the best at in the world, not just good at, but what we're the best at in the world, the things that we channel that only we uniquely can own every single morning. Because if you start your day with that idea of positivity and self-confidence, it really does change how others see you, how you see yourself. And that's really what we've learned about Gravitas. Now, what does that mean in adversity? And why does it matter to choose self-confidence? Well, I'm going to talk a little bit, and I'll talk more in my workshop about why it's important to choose self-confidence. But when times are tough, when adversity hits, you know, there is something very real that happens in that I call it, you can read about the amygdala hijack. There's a part of your brain called the amygdala, and there's a part called the hypothalamus. And what happens is the amygdala, every animal on the planet has an amygdala. It's the most primitive part of your brain. It controls flight, fight, and freeze. So when you see an upset or you're disturbed by something, you can fly away, you can be paralyzed, or you can fight it. And when upsets happen, the amygdala is the first to react. It shows up at the party first. The hypothalamus, which controls problem solving and good thinking and really thoughtful options, it actually doesn't kick in until 10 seconds later. This is why your mom used to say, when you're upset, count to 10. And so when adversity happens, I think most of us can go into the amygdala hijack. But if we just pause and we think about it for a moment, we're able to let creative thinking and problem solving take over our brains. So one of the things that happens during upsets, and this is an example of our team, when COVID happened, we actually knew, because we have a team out in China that let us know back in January that this was going to affect us. One of the things we did was, as a team, you can imagine the panic that happens to a fashion company when something like COVID happens. One of the things I said is, let's not spiral. Let's not spiral. Let's not go into that amygdala hijack. Let's pause, because the adversity that is hitting us right now, we can't react to it. We can't get paralyzed. We can't fight it. We can't fly away from it. Let's pause and let's not spiral. The next thing we did is we took stock of the things that we're the best at. And this is the whole idea of choosing self-confidence, seeing the best qualities in yourself and your team. We were able to take stock of the things that we were good at. And I said, what are we the best at in the world, guys? We make beautiful fitting garments. We make beautiful clothes. And I said, how can we help others? And the third thing we did as a team to manage through adversity, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in the workshop, is when adversity happens, there's two ways you can ask the question. The first is, how can I help? And I think that's the equivalent of being in a store and an associate going, can I help you? And you're like, no, I'm just browsing, right? No one knows how to answer that question. It's an open-ended question with no real answer. Versus if you have chosen self-confidence, if you really have recognized your unique gifts and qualities and your team's unique gifts, you actually can offer up here's how I can help. These are the ways in which I can make things better. And our team in particular, you'll see a photo of our head designer there, we decided that we would create PPE for the front line. And this was at the end of March, the first week of April. We made hospital gowns, we made face masks for the front line and our community, and we continue to do that today. But it was a way to manage through adversity. And as we shared it with our community, what was unbelievable is other people came along for the ride. So when we said, here's how we are helping, we had people raise their hands over and over again to be a part of it. I had a former client, the head of supply chain for Marc Jacobs, raise her hand and say, hey, I see that you're walking to work every day, an hour and a half each direction from downtown New York to Midtown. I have a car. My college-age kids are home. They're driving me crazy. I could drive you to work. I obviously did not take her up on that offer every day, but there was a day I had 200 pounds of fabric downtown that I needed to move uptown, and she came and drove it. We had other people raise their hands and say, hey, I would love to be a part of this. How can I donate to my local hospital? And we were able to ship PPE to hospitals around the country. But when adversity hits, it is on all of us to recognize our strengths, the things that make us uniquely capable, offer that help, and in those instances, not just pivot, but pivot with purpose. And I think that is really the message is our team, we didn't pivot with profit in mind. In fact, I think profit is a tough concept right now. We pivoted with the intent of authentically helping our communities, our team, and the front line. And so in our workshop, we will talk about how do you discover the sources of your self-confidence, and how do you channel that? Because I do think we see who people really are when times are tough. It is easy to be a high performer and a good person in good times, right? That just by default. When times are challenging, we really get to see who we are and how we can channel our best selves in when times are tough. So I look forward to spending more time with you in our workshop, and thank you for the opportunity to share our story.